in maps of meaning. You talk about the fact that we're comfortable with the known, what is known, around which we build all our cultural traditions and from which our myths are propagated, and then there's exploration of the new, if you like, and how we can act on that. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Because you're insinuating, I believe, in your work, that in your book, that to do so can make one some kind of heroic action. You've mapped out something whereby we can reach out for what is unknown to explore our potential and our creativity. Is that correct?
I think that's a good summary. I mean, imagine that in life you have one obvious thing to rely on. And the obvious thing you have to rely on is the traditional knowledge and wealth of your culture. It contains most of the knowledge that you have and allows you to make your life as comfortable as it has been made within it. But there are other sources of strength too, and they're more subtle. So your culture provides you with what's known and what's knowable. But culture has never mapped everything out perfectly. There's many things that remain to be known. And many of the things that remain to be known are valuable. And what that means is that if you search after what is yet unknown, you can also derive strength from that. Because that's the domain in which new discoveries are made. And so if I face you with evidence that you're wrong about something, which means there's something that you don't know that you're not taking into account, that can frighten you because it shows you that the knowledge structures that you rely on are dangerously incomplete. And that can make you very angry, and that can make you very resentful. Or you can say, oh, isn't that so fascinating? The fact that something isn't known here means that I could go and discover that. I could voluntarily encounter that, and I could derive something new and valuable, and I could use that. And the hero in mythology is the person who voluntarily encounters the unknown. And this is a unbelievably old concept. It's the oldest concept we know that human beings have created. It stems all the way back to the Enuma Elish, the Mesopotamian creation myth, which is the oldest written document we have. And it's the Enuma Elish is the story on which the first story in Genesis is based. Now, here's a way of thinking about things, and this is a mythological way, and it's extremely useful. So forget for a minute the idea that the world is made out of matter, and forget that it's made out of objects. We'll look at it from a different perspective. We'll say, the world of experience, which is the world you inhabit, is made out of three things. It's made out of the fact that no matter how much you know, there are going to be phenomena and occurrences that exceed your capacity for comprehension. And that's always going to be the case. And so we're going to call that a category. That's the category of the unknown. And then there are always going to be things that you know and understand, and that's part of your tradition. We're going to call that the known. So wherever you go, wherever you are, there's a balance between the known and the unknown. And then the third thing is the fact of you. There's a conscious observer there. And the conscious observer is the place where the known and the unknown interact. That's the mythological actors. The known, that's the Great Father. The unknown, that's the Great Mother. And the individual. And the Taoists represent that as yin and yang, or chaos versus order. People think about that as masculine versus feminine, and that gives us a bad interpretation or an insufficient interpretation of Taoist thought. The Taoists say, experience is made of chaos and order, and the proper place to stand is right between them. And you can tell when you're standing right between chaos and order, because that's when you feel that things are meaningful. And that means that meaning is the instinct that tells you that you're standing in the right place. Now, people are vulnerable and they're afraid because of that, and they can be challenged and hurt, and they can be made angry and murderous. But I would say, well, if you stand between chaos and order properly, your life can become so meaningful that the meaning gives you confidence and power and the ability to overcome your sense of shameful vulnerability. And I would also say that's what religious stories are telling you to do. Now we go back to Genesis. In the beginning, God makes order out of chaos. And that story is based on an older architecture derived from the Enuma Elish. In the Enuma Elish, a god named Marduk cuts up the dragon of chaos and makes the world out of her pieces. Well, the dragon of chaos recurs as a mythological motif frequently, generally in the guise of Leviathan, say. And Yahweh is envisioned as the deity that derives order, habitable order from chaos. And immediately after Yahweh derives habitable order from chaos, he makes human beings, and then he announces that they are made in his image, male and female, made in his image. Well, we think that means that God is like a human being. But what it really means is that the human being is like God in that the human being has the capacity to make order out of chaos. And when we say that there's something divine about a person that gives them intrinsic rights, what we mean is the fact that each human being can make order out of chaos means that every single person is deserving of a certain kind of respect, even if they're murderous, even if they're criminals, even if they're prostitutes or tax collectors. They're still embodied with the kind of dignity that only identity with God can provide. And that identity is the capacity to make order out of chaos. And it's not just a metaphor.